there's not someone next to me. Well, that would have been Freakish Workshop, and unfortunately, his gallbladder decided to turn heel on him a couple days ago, and he is recovering in the hospital. He is okay. He is perfectly fine, but he needed to take the weekend off to recover. So we wish him nothing but the best, and we will hopefully see him very, very shortly at the next convention. So we are here to talk about cosplaying with EVA foam. Who has never cosplayed with EVA foam before? Hands in the air. Who has cosplayed with EVA foam before? Perfect. All right, good to know. So we are going to go very high level right now, only because we got about a half an hour. If you guys have any extra questions or want to know any more details, I am over there at my booth. Please swing by and ask all the questions you have. So, always the question that I get asked about EVA foam, why do you want to start using EVA foam? It is so easy to use. If you are wanting to do seamstressing, you need to learn how to use a sewing machine. If you want to make a 3D print, you need to get a 3D printer and you need a film and all that stuff. If you want to do metal work, then you need to start on that. Foam, you need a foam and a knife. That's it. It's really easy to use. So I always say it is the best thing to start out with. So let's start out with the tools you might need. There are 100,000 things that you can get for your EVA foam to make it absolutely perfect. But if you're just starting off, EVA foam is obvious. Number 2, X-Acto knives are your best friend. You can get really thick ones, you can get really thin ones. What's the difference? Well, thick ones can get into really thick foam, thin ones can get into really thin foam, but a thin one can also flex a bit, which is very good if you need a pattern that has a curve to it. If you have something that's super strong and super stiff, you want that thick knife. You are also going to need a metal ruler. Now, you're probably wondering, why would you want a metal ruler? Why wouldn't a regular plastic ruler work? Well, the reason is that you're going to put your ruler where your line is, and you're going to cut along with the EVA foam. You're going to cut EVA foam with your knife. If it's a sharp enough knife, and you have to use a sharp knife, there is a chance you can cut into the ruler, and you do not want to do that. So the metal ones work the best. When it comes to marking your EVA foam, you're going to want to use markers, Sharpies, anything like that. You're going to need 2 colors, black and a silver. Silver because black marker does not work on black foam. For adhesives, this is one that is debatable because when you start off, adhesives can become very complicated. Hot glue is the rookie best one to start out with. However, and I will explain the story of why I know this, hot glue has its limits. The reason it does is because hot glue melts in the heat. When are most of the conventions? What is the temperature of the room? It is warm. I had my original gambit. I was standing in an Airbnb at an escalator waiting for it to come down. And as I'm standing there, I feel every strap on this cosplay pop. Pretty much at the same time. That's when I realized that EVA foam and hot glue work well in the cold, but during convention season it can be a problem. Your alternate choices are contact cement. You can pick contact cement up at art stores, you can pick it up at any hardware store. What this is, it's a type of material that they use in construction. And the way to use it is you wipe it on one side, you wipe it on the other, you wait for it to dry, and as soon, and I mean as soon as it touches, it is bomb. It is what I built this with, it is what I built this with, it is what I built this with. The biggest problem with contact cement is it has a lot of fumes. Please. And if you don't remember anything, if you're using contact cement, remember this. Open a window, be in a well-ventilated area, wear a respirator. Because it is toxic to breathe in after a while. And the only other glue I would mention is super glue. This can become very costly because it comes in little containers. Use that for any tiny little bead work or any detail. Because it's really cheap, it's really small, but it's very expensive. And the last thing, and I would like to send this out to one of the most important people in my life, put something underneath your foam if you're cutting it. We all have that family table, the kitchen table where we all eat our supper. Do not use that to cut your foam, because you will cut through your foam and you will cut into the table. We had a beautiful apartment, we had a beautiful glass table. It was not a beautiful glass table when we moved, it stayed in the apartment when we moved. Save yourself that talk. Get yourself what is called a self-healing mat. You can find these at Fabric, you can find these even at, this is a great tip for you guys. If you're starting out in cosplay and you're needing to look for odds and ends things, Princess Olive has so many odd and end things that you would buy. You would spend 3 times as much at Home Depot, 3 times as much at Canadian Tire. They have self-adhesive mats. What these are is you will cut into it and it will self-heal back to itself. You can get a dirt sheet. I think you can get a big one at Princess Auto for 15 bucks. You'll use it for years. I've used the same one for 10. So those are the main things you need to think about. You can get heat guns and stuff like that, but that's more advanced. You don't have to get that when you first start. When it comes to the types of foam, you will hear this all over the internet. Foam density. You will hear this is a low density foam. This is a high density foam. I have talked to the person who was next to me, who was supposed to be next to me, and we had a great discussion about this. The discussion lasted about 2 seconds. I still have no idea what the difference is. So if you are looking for high density foam, I don't know what it is. We all use the same foam. You can get different sizes. You can get thicknesses. So have you guys ever seen the formats you can get that kind of interlock together? That's EVA foam. That's the 10 millimeter thick ones. That's what I started with. Because I'm gonna age myself on this one. I started back in the day in 2009 when none of this was popular. It was popular, but it wasn't as accessible as it is now. So the only thing we had to work with was floor mats. So every piece of armor, no matter what it was super bulky. Now, you can get really thin foam, you can get thicker foam for whatever you need. They usually come in rolls, and you can pick them up mostly online. I have a personal agreement with Michaels because Michaels had a big cosplay section at one point. And they started it in, I think I remember the date specifically, March 2020. Does anybody remember what happened in March 2020? I think the pandemic came. So they started that line at Michaels during the pandemic. And if you don't understand how retail works, if you put something new on the shelf, it has about a 2 to 3 year life cycle. And if it doesn't sell, they take it out. So by the time conventions were running, nobody had bought foam because nobody was doing conventions, and it killed a lot. Which was great for me because I could buy stuff at discount, but it's a pain now because you can't find it easy. So online is your best option. There are different cosplayers that sell it. SKS Props is a great one. He's just in the northern US, but he ships to Canada. He's got great foam. But yeah, there are many different types of foam you can get, and it really depends on the project. It really depends on your project. Stuff like this, you can get around with usually a 4 to a 6 millimeter. You're good. If you get something that's really thin, it's more for detail work. Like you have something that wants to have like a spiral look on the outside, that's what you want thin stuff for. The thick stuff, like my friend Freakish Workshop, who is working on a Rhino from Amazing Spider-Man 2, he's using thick 10 millimeter foam. That's the only thing you want to use for that. And one of the best things, the places where you can get your most supplies is something I always want to talk about because you can find them pretty much anywhere. Dollarama for your knives, anything like that, Dollarama is your best bet. And also, a lot of people go to Dollarama and think that is the end all be all when it comes to dollar stores. I can tell you now as a cosplayer, Dollar Tree has Dollar Tree has her metal rulers, has her knives, has super glue in a better size than Dollar Red. So I always have to give Dollar Tree a little bit of an extra push because Dollar Red is easily available and you get a lot of our stuff at Dollar Tree. Michael's, it's hit and miss. You can find some stuff, you can't find some stuff. I use it as a last bastion. Freakish Workshop made sure to remind me to go to Lens Mills. He loves going to Lens Mills. There's many pictures that he's posted on his Instagram of him walking out with a shopping cart full of EVA foam. Other cosplayers in the area have not been happy with him because he will buy the store out. So thankfully I don't live here. But lastly, as with most things online, you can find almost anything online. Now this is usually the part, again, I'm only have a half hour, so I can't go into too much detail, but when it comes to templating, so when you decide what you want to make, you say, I want to make this Gambit costume. You see how great I did it, you want to do it yourself. You say, where do I find templates? Well, templates can be found all over. Freakish Workshop has his own. If you're looking to build anything that is Call of Duty, Siege, anything military, this would have been the individual to talk to. I always want to tell new cosplayers that it is very easy, because I did this when I started, to download every template available, which to a point is good. However, if you're going to purchase any, I recommend going to somewhere that has very basic templates. For example, this is just a basic chest piece. I have added the little bits around here to accentuate. The reason is because if you're going to pay money for the Kratos Blades of Olympus, you're only going to use that template for the Kratos Blade of Olympus. If you buy a generic chest piece or a generic helmet or shin guards or something like that, you can use that across the board for many different cosplays. So I always recommend that you buy something generic first because you don't know what cosplay you're going to be building in 2 months. You don't know what you're going to be building next year. So to have those stockpiled, ready to go, will save you a lot of time later because then you're not searching for those later. And lastly, I want to give you guys some Q&A if you have any questions. Actually, before we go on, does anybody have any questions? Nope. Perfect. I'll keep going. The one thing that I think a lot of cosplayers that do tutorials, and I also do tutorials on my YouTube page, my Corp Cosplay, you can all subscribe. The one thing that I think a lot of cosplayers don't talk about, I think is very important because I have had a lot of close calls. Safety. This is building. This does include sharp objects, heat, adhesives with fumes. Wear your safety equipment. You're going to want to make sure you have a pair of safety glasses. And this is really important because when you're getting more into your EVA foam work, you're going to have what's called a rotary tube, which is going to have a spinning disc on the end that'll help you stand down and possible. I have had a couple of these pop and go flying across the room. If I'm not wearing safety glasses, that's going to die. You also want to be wearing a mask because, like I said, you're going to have fumes, you're going to have foam particles, and a whole bunch of other stuff going into your lungs. Don't. Again, you may not think about it now because you're like, I'm just doing this a couple times. If this becomes something like it is for me where I'm doing it every day almost, you don't want to be breathing that stuff in all the time. Also, a good pair of gloves. You can get those disposable vinyl gloves. Those will save you a ton of time later having to clean up, especially when it comes to adhesives, because I don't know about the rest of you, but if I have anything on my hands, anything that's dry, it clogs me. So a nice pair of gloves is always important. And I personally, I usually have a lot of, this is wig, and usually my hair is a little shorter than this. I always wear a ball cap because otherwise I'm showering like crazy because you will have foam and everything all over. So, again, I don't want to go too deep into this, but basically, if you're going to start your first foam cosplay, I want to stress, don't buy a whole ton of stuff on your first day. I know you may be super excited, and I was too when I first started foam cosplay. And I wanted to buy everything out there, I buy every tool, every tutorial I watched online, there was a new tool, and I knew this and I knew that. Start small is the best advice I can give every single one. If you want to, you can, but for me personally, if I'm doing something like this, and I was new to this, I would start with, let's start with just a chest piece. Just build a chest. And if you like building one piece, start building the next. And start building the next, and start building the next. Because like I said, you can buy everything, and I would pay for you guys to buy all the tools, all the materials, and all that, and then change your mind at the last minute. Because I've done that with certain things where I bought a whole bunch of stuff and I went, and this isn't for me. So, when it comes to what you should start as your first cosplay, I mean, the sky's the limit. I know some people who want to start looking at cosplay and they want to do a Gears of War cosplay, like over there. It looks incredible. And if you want to jump in, feet first in the deep end and go nuts, have at it. I totally understand. I totally hope you enjoy it. Personally, though, I started out very small. My first thing, you can see it over there in my booth, my first prop was actually the Hellboy fist. And you might be sitting there thinking, guys started with a Hellboy fist and you didn't know, like, that's a pretty big prop. Honestly, it's a couple pieces of foam wrapped in a sphere, and then I just spray foam over top. I'm telling you, everybody can cosplay. Everybody can find their niche. Like I said, if you don't want to do foam, there are so many other ways you can do cosplay. You can seamstress, you can 3D print, you can do... I've seen people do metal. I can just imagine how warm they are in that cosplay, walking around in full metal. But yeah, I always encourage people to start out small when it comes to it, because yeah, I've seen a lot. I've seen a couple of my friends say, you know, have that, they come to a con like this, they see cosplayers like that, and myself, and all the guests that are over there, and they want to go full tilt, go, I'm going to cosplay. And by the time the next con rolls around, it changes and things change. Yeah, life changes. That's a big one. Life changes. So, if this is something you want to start, please, start small. Ask us. Ask anybody in foam cosplay. We would be more than happy to give advice. Like I said, I have a YouTube channel, Corp Cosplay. I'm putting out shorts every couple days of Q&As of people cosplaying, questions that I've been asked, even about conventions and full hours. So if you want to go on resources, YouTube me, YouTube Freakish Workshop, or again, introductions here, and see you go into a lot of this template. What else can we talk about? Well, let's talk about here. You know, if you want to, see, the problem starting up here is that I have half of this built, and Freakish had half of this built, so I'm trying to remember what this half is. When you're starting to build your EVA foam, I'm trying to make you have experience. There is a chance that you can do something like Freakish. And Freakish, the way he builds his templates, and I really want to push him because he's got a really interesting way of doing his templates. The way he builds it is he's very good at understanding 3D sculpture and flattening. And it's something I've never been able to understand, but that is basically how you want to start your foam cosplay. That's how he starts his. Is that he'll think of an object, think of sphere. And he will break it down into the most flat, laid out way of doing it, and he will build a template out of that. That's basically your template about. There are many different ways that you could do. There are many different ways that you can build your foam cosplay, and he loves to do it that way. When you're, I'm trying to think of what's that? out to you. When it comes to building these templates, the best way to build a template if you want to start these off is to start with your poster board. You can find poster board at Dollarama, I guess there's many other things. The poster board is going to be the best way to build it. And he explained this to me, and I don't follow his logic, but he understands that. The poster board has a little more thickness to it than your normal everyday printer. And that will give you a little more of an idea of what the final project is going to be. If you're going to start with your template, build it out of a material that isn't your medium. And I want to stress this because there have been so many times that I have thrown out patterns that aren't the right size, but I'm the guy that jumps ahead and tries to build it and just build your stuff out of material, whether it's cardboard. Cardboard's another one. I have seen cosplayers walking around in full Iron Man suits made out of cardboard. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. So start out with either a poster board or an artboard and build a model version of it. When it comes to the film industry, that's what they usually do for big props. They usually build something out of material you can use in the store. And that is one of the best things you can do when it comes to cosplay because this is material you can throw away and you can find it anywhere. You can find it anywhere. You can find it. You can build it to your specifications. And when you trying to think of the best way to say it. You basically don't want to waste time to be completely honest, and I've wasted tons. Before I get ready to leave, any questions? Anybody? Vote. So like I said, folks, if you so let's say you make a TV form. Definitely. So there are many different ways you can use. So for these specifically, you can use strapping. You can get like the it's like vinyl strapping, sort of like plastic. You can use that. You can use elastic. You can find that stretchy elastic stuff. That's what I kind of have on the back here. You can use stuff called D-rings. What D-rings are? They're metal. They honestly are sort of like a metal loop under the shape of the D. Those are the best thing if you're gonna have a lot of hole on it, because that will take a lot more abuse than say a stretching material. When it comes to attaching it specifically, you're going to want to do a couple things on top of just putting a strap on it, because you're always going to be moving, you're always going to be bending. Putting an extra layer of foam on top of it is always recommended. If you're going to do something that has an elastic, some people like just doing like a piece of Velcro and then the strap in. I prefer to do a stitch through it. This is how I started any of my sewing, because I never wanted to sew anything, but I was like, this is probably the best thing. Because if you put any adhesive on the Velcro and the strap, as soon as it pulls, it'll pull the adhesive right off. So even if you go on the sewing machine, just get a little bit of thread and just hand stitch like each corner, and that should go perfect. There are tons, like I said, there's tons of different ways. I personally have combined a bunch of different ones. It all depends on how much give you need and how much stretch you need. Because something like this, when I first built it, I only built it to about here, and I had a big elastic behind it. But I felt it giving after a while, so I rebuilt it, and it doesn't have as much hold on it. So you're gonna have to try and narrow it a little bit. It depends. If you want to do a gauntlet. Is that kind of what you're thinking, or you want to do a helmet? Perfect. Yeah, so strapping is definitely going to be the best thing you use. So you can get the vinyl strapping. I get it on Amazon. You can get it you get a big roll of this for $10. You use it all the time. Does anybody live in the Hamilton area? Okay, I need you to plug your ears on this. Do you guys know what Crazy Bins is? those stores that they dump all the Amazon stuff, go there for your cosplay supplies. Because they have so much extra stuff. Alright, guys, I have to get going. Thank you guys so much for coming out here. Again, I wish Freakers Workshop was here. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, come on over to my booth. It'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.